First of all, thank you very much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric Swanson. My wife and I live in the district. We have a son who's a sophomore in high school. Our daughter's sadly off in North Carolina at college, but coming back soon, so that will be a happier day. My day job is I'm an attorney, and I, in the course of my career, have been involved in way more public meetings and hearings than I care to count. And because of that experience, I was asked a couple months ago to help host a forum on open enrollment. I thought we had a great discussion that night. I must not have done too bad a job, plus my price is right since I'm a volunteer, so I was asked to host this evening's forum as well. The game plan for the night, I will give just a very brief overview of what we're going to try to accomplish, I hope, tonight. And then I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Larson and Ms. Manders to give you some more information, and then we're going to run through an audience participation. So we want you to get up and moving and talking with your neighbors this evening as well. So what we hope will come out of this is first providing you with some information about the budgeting process and how that works. We also, I'm going to switch the order a little bit because I think the order we'll go in is next we want you to provide input. Budgets, levy decisions have real consequences, real effects. It means depending on the results, there are cuts to be done, there are revenues to be raised, and we want to get your input into your priorities so that we get a better sense of the community's values and feelings about this. And then get your input into a variety of different options that are being considered for the levy proposals. So again, Superintendent Larson will walk us through, provide some overview information. I'll sort of explain then the next phase, and I may have some questions for the district as well as we go through the information. I'll sort of explain the next phase. You then get to get up and get moving and talking to your neighbors, and then you're going to be voting with the little, if you were wondering why you were handed a baggie full of dots, there's no trading the dots. I don't want to see a black market for dots developing in the back of the room. You actually have to use those to indicate your suggestions for where cuts should be made if necessary, where revenue should be derived if necessary. And then we'll pull back again and we'll move into the next phase. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Mark.
Okay, thank you. Well, a couple other things is that this is going to be the one public meeting that we're having like this. Then we'll be doing this at each of the school buildings, so we'll have staff input. We'll do the same exercise at each of the school buildings, including the district office, Wildwood, O.H. Anderson, the middle school, and the high school. And then we're also going to be sending out a community survey that's asking the same thing. It'll be similar, it's one of those Survey Monkey surveys that you have to click. You only get 6 options for what you want to cut or what you want to increase. It's the same thing as this. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to try to have all of that done and completed in the next 2 weeks. And then on May 8th, day after tomorrow, the school board is meeting, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to give me a direct administration to come up with recommendations for the study session, which is going to be on May 22nd. And so at that point in time, we will have some ideas, and we'll share that and discuss it at the study session. And then the school board will make decisions on June 12th as to what we're going to do. And the options you'll see are on the levies. They're the ones that are face down right now. We're going to put those up and ask people again to vote on those using your, I think it's your orange dot at the end. So that's going to be our last activity. We also have, as you go about prioritizing, we also have Post-it notes and pens located around here. If there are other suggestions or ideas that aren't listed, or if there are comments that you want to make on it, please use the Post-it notes and the pens. Write with the pens on the Post-it notes and stick them on there, and we'll include those as well. So at the end of all this, we're taking all this information down. We'll be synthesizing it in the next couple of days. So school board will have this initial information session. They'll have all of this stuff right here for Thursday night. They won't have the sites yet, but then they'll have that be at the time we get to May 22nd. So we're also looking for constructive input and feedback. And part of what that means is that no personal things. I don't like Mr. or Mrs. Smith, and so you want to put that down. That's inappropriate, and we're not going to take that into consideration. We're talking about programs and ideas, but we're not getting into the personal things, so we need to stay above that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would just emphasize, I wasn't even aware until superintendent just laid it out. And time is important here. Time is of the essence. So, and you do have a chance to have your voice heard, so please use it. And as the superintendent said, use it constructively. This can be a great dialogue within the community if we approach it that way. So, you're involved, obviously, or you wouldn't be here. Please stay involved. Get others involved.
So this is going to be a little bit of a brief review from our last session, and I think it was April 15th, tax day. And what this is showing is our actual performance for last year, our current operating budget that were revised a month ago, and then what we're looking at for 14-15. And what you'll want to notice here is that really it's kind of the bottom line here. The surplus for 12-13 ended up to be above the line, and we had planned an even budget there. And we actually had $250,000 worth of cuts in that year, but we had a donation that came in at the end of the year that we had to recognize. So it actually brought us into a surplus position, but it was only because of the timing of the donation, which was money that we weren't counting on. For the revised budget, we did not, and for 13-14, we did not make cuts. The board decided to take the deficit into the fund balance. So we are negative by almost 500,000. That's a projection for this current year. And then for the 14-15, the board did a couple things. They cut 490,000, and then the rest they're putting through as a deficit spending in the fund balance. This changed a little bit from, from the last April meeting because we had some updates in enrollment estimates and updates in insurance. So this changed a little bit. It did not change our unassigned fund balance goal, though, so it's important to notice that it only affect the total, and it's because of some accounting recognition that we have to do with assigned and unassigned fund balances in 13-14 that didn't change the bottom line of unassigned, which is probably too much to get into right now.
And yeah, if I could just, you mentioned that there were cuts made by the board. Most folks may be well aware of that, but could you run through those real quick?
Yeah. Would you like to? I know the gist of it. I don't know that we've got them, all articulated. It was in the board packet, and it's on the website also. And maybe we could pull it up from the website. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll come back to that
Great,
as
thanks.
soon as Dr. Larson finds it. But then the other thing to notice is that we have a website here. We've got a direct link. If you pull up this online, we'll show you how to do that in a second. This link is to our audit page, our finance page on the website, and we also have budget information out there, which this information will be posted out there too, that we're going to look at in a minute. And we can get back to that question.
That'd be great.
I can actually pull it up on here as we continue on here. But these are the general fund options with 2014 levy options. So this is something that the board looked at a study session a couple weeks ago. And what the options are, there's 5 things here. There's, whoops. I'm sorry. Okay. So the option is a failed levy. If we do have a failed levy, if we go up for one and it's a fail, we're going to have to cut about $2.2 million. If we have a straight renew, which is our current 881.18 referendum revenue, we will still have to cut $1.6 million. And so then we came up with 3 scenarios. We came up with 145, 330, and 500. And looked at what we would experience then for deficit spending or surplus. And this is the bottom line here. So we would still be cutting 1.1 if we went with a 145 increase. And we'd still be cutting about 500 if we went for a 330. And at 500, we would break even. And so what happens is we've got a very conservative model here with the revenues very conservative. We have hardly any increases in there. And so people thought, they might say, well, if, we're going to try to put through a levy of 500, and we only have a one-year balanced budget, what good is that? Well, the thing is, we expect to have at least 2 or 3 years of a balanced budget, but with the projections, we can't count on that revenue. We can't say we're gonna get 2.5% from the state, or we're gonna hold off on contract settlements on the expenditure side. So this is a worst-case conservative model.
What is the 145 and 330 and 500 per how many? Per what? Per $1,000, per $100,000?
These numbers here,
Yeah.
it's 145 per pupil, for adjusted pupil unit.
Right, and I think if we can try to hold on the questions, I think some of them will get answered as we move through, as far as, you know, what that impact would be to you, for example, as a homeowner. So hopefully
Yeah, we do have that coming up.
that will be coming.
Yep. But that is per pupil unit, and just really quickly, our pupil units, adjusted pupil units, that's, they apply the weighting. So if we get the standard allowance times 1.0 for K through 6, and then 1.2 is the weighting for 7 through 12, and it's applied to that when we calculate the levy. This is the 10-year projection. We were asked for this. This is a little bit hard to do because it starts getting really, really uncertain after 1 or 2 years out as to what is going to happen in these years that follow, because we have legislative sessions that need to go through, and we don't know what our funding is going to be. We don't know what our contracts are going to be. We don't know what the economy is going to be doing. And so it's really hard to go out more than 2 to 3 years. Even the third year is really hard to predict. But we did it based on the financial projection model that we have, and that one only goes out 5 years. So after 3 years, and this is mislabeled, this should be 17, 18, I even had to project what that might be, which I didn't put a lot of work into it because it's kind of futile. And you can see once we get out to this 10th year, what would a 10-year levy look like? And we'd have to cut these additional costs. Very iffy. I mean, that isn't something I would, you know, would.
So what I'm taking from that is that shouldn't be taken as gospel, and that's not a scare story. That's just the best guess based on your best guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so what this first column here shows is what we just reviewed on the prior slide at these different levels, and then what the second year would look like. And you can see we're going up about 800,000 in almost every case here. And that's what it would be if there was no revenue increases and the continuing expenditure increases. And then adding in an extra, actually our current level is 157. And so if you add, once you start adding these in, the cuts are less, obviously. And then down to here, the least. I'm
sorry, you lost me, and maybe you lost others. The current level is 157. What does that mean?
Okay, the current level is 157.18. Okay, and as I'm looking at this, when I saw it, I caught myself when I was speaking because we have 3 components to our referendum revenue, which is $881, our current funding level. And we have a $424, it's called vocation equity levy. We have a $300 board-approved levy, which the board put through last year. The balance is what would be voted on, which for us is 157.18.
Okay, so that's the 157 is the current
Yes.
levy.
And so when I looked over here at this increase is from the base, from the current renew of 157 plus the 145 and so on. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And these are the assumptions. I said, it's really tough to know what's going to happen here, but I did put a 1% increase from the state in the revenues here. Basic salary and benefit increases based on historical settlements, inflationary increases, and then just a pretty much flat enrollment.
And is flat enrollment the best guess at this point?
It's conservative. I would say no, because we have been increasing enrollment over the last 10 years, especially we've shown that in prior meetings, but it's conservative. So as we add students, then the revenue can go up too. So for our sake, I put in 3260 here. And then the last one is the tax impact on all of these scenarios. So again, here's the 881 and so on. And on an average price home at 268, this would be our levels of increases. Now this is our current level of referendum revenue, and that's only those three components that I talked about. It's only the 881, we call it referendum levy. And there's many other components to levies, but this is just the one that we're talking about tonight, is the one that people will be voting on next fall. And then, so if you have a levy increase of 145, it's about $79 a year, which is about $7 a month. If we go to the 330, it's about $15 a month, and then about $23 for the 500. Okay.
And I'm sure this is known to an educated crowd that showed up tonight, but the reason a levy is going to be on the ballot in November. What if the board did nothing? What if nothing were on the ballot?
If nothing was on the ballot, and they did nothing, we would be over here.
And so it's the same as failure. The reason it's on the ballot is it's expiring.
Yeah, it's expiring. It expires after this year. Yeah, absolutely, after 14-15. So that's why we're talking about 15-16. So the way the taxes work is for 2014, when we say 2014 levy, that's when the taxes are levied. But they're for the next year. So this will be levied in the fall of 2014. They're, levied on the taxpayer in 2015 for school year 15-16. So.
Question was that what are some of the reductions that the school board has already done? The first one was eliminating the midday buses for kindergarten. We reduced the ELL and integration staff. We non-renewed some part-time staff at the elementary schools. We adjusted teaching schedules for specialists. We recaptured some money from PBIS and EBD. We've changed some things with our special education accounting, so that's now covered out of special ed funds, which there's a reimbursement on, and not the general funds. Reductions at the district office. We've reduced special education staff. The high school and middle school have to have a minimum enrollment to be offered, and we changed the Montemita Digital Learning Academy. So those are the things that the board has already taken action on.
And that all added up to, again?
Close to $490,000.
Thanks.
And then, so this is the priority exercise that you're about to participate in. And you should have your baggie, and on it also has the directions of what each of these things is worth and valued on. What I would like for you to do, please, is sit tight, and I want to walk through a couple of examples as to what these things mean. Then if there are questions or concerns that you have, like I'm not sure what this means or what does that mean, please raise your hand and signal, and either Rochelle or I or one of the other school folks can go come around and answer the questions that you may have. I do want to say a couple things about this. One is that you don't have a lot of dots. You really don't. And there's a lot of options out here, and so we want you to be judicious and thoughtful about this. And really take some time and think and say, yes, this is something that I think would be a good idea for the district to cut, or no, this is absolutely something that they cannot and should not. You don't have to put you can put one dot on everything, you can put all 6 of them on something. Wherever you want to put the dots is wherever you want to put the dots. And so what we'll do then is, as you walk around and think about this, look at the Post-its, add comments, get some thoughts going. We'll walk around and probably take about 20 minutes on this process, maybe even longer. If it takes more time, then it takes more time. But we want people to really be thoughtful about this, because this is a tough thing. So that's the first part of it. The second part then is that we want to go over and explain some of the details on this. Now, the first one, average class size at the elementary. We're adding, because we're expecting enrollment to increase based on the movements that we've had last year and the real estate market right now, we're adding 5 teachers. So if we were to make this as an elimination for next year, for the 2015-16, that would save about $325,000. And then these other ones is...
And Mark, if I can just stop you on that one right away. When it says increased class sizes, I don't know about others, but I don't know what that means. From roughly what to roughly what?
The class size at the elementary would increase from, right now currently we are above the Metro XU average, so in first grade we're at about 23, 20, Mark, could you tell me?
We're at 27 right now.
Okay, and then so with the new additional staff, we'll bring it back down to, we're thinking,
In our literacy and math blocks, if that direction we go, we'll probably get that down to 23 average.
and then Kirsten at OH, we're at 28 and 29 in fourth and fifth grade.
And a couple at 30. And with the increased staff, we'll be more at 25 to 26.
So, that, we'll get there. Then these other ones here, these are listed at all, not just at the elementary, but also the middle school, the high school, all the levels here. And what those are is that these are classes that have standards that have to be taught, but there are places that teach the standards in context of the curriculum. For example, White Bear Lake does their art standards, they do that with the White Bear Center for the Arts. So they'll come on in and do that for 5 days during the course of the year. That's how they work with that. We have an art specialist, media specialist, all those type of things. We have math specialists and reading specialists at the elementary levels. And to speak to this a little bit is that the funding over here is pretty accurate, but there are some things about funding that are important to understand. One is that in terms of special education funding, we get reimbursed, 68% of the salary is reimbursed by the state. So if you say, well, you eliminate a special ed teacher, it's not as big a savings as you think. We also have something that's called maintenance of effort. In state statute, we have to maintain the effort that we've had in terms of special education. That includes paraprofessionals and licensed staff. We have to maintain the effort that we have in school psychs and I think nursing. I think we're above in nursing, so that's part of that. The other piece of it is that we just got word that we got our ADSES grant approved this past week. And so, which is a great thing. The ADSES grant is a grant that stands for Alternative Delivery and Instructional Support for Students. The idea is that we make smaller class sizes with some of the students that are struggling. That's worth about $200,000. So if you're thinking that, hey, you know, we have 2 reading support teachers, let's just get rid of 1. You got to be careful on that because some of that money comes from title, which is not anything from local, it's federal money, and the ADSES grant is another thing. So just be careful and be thoughtful about this. And if you have questions, we'll be around to help answer them. The class sizes over here at the middle school, currently they're about 28, and if we were to jump that up to about 30, that would be a reduction of about $195,000. And one thing that I should say on all of these reductions, it's staff that is the reduction. There are less staff to teach the students. That's why the class sizes go up. And so as you can tell, as you look at these other pieces here, you can see what this is. This is 1 counselor and building administration throughout the buildings there. And then at the high school, if you go up from 30, which is about the average class size, to about 32, then that's about $195,000. Additionally, this is the same one from the other side, and then this one, if you go all the way up to 30 to 36, that would save about this much money, and so on. I do want to speak a little bit to the College in the Schools program. That's $32,000 about. The school district has to pay the University of Minnesota in order for the students to get credit. You cannot charge students for that credit. So that's a great opportunity for students. Last year, the students earned over $300,000 worth of University of Minnesota credit. So, I mean, $32,000 is a lot of money, but it's also quite a value for students. But if we eliminate that program, kids would not take it, but the school district would not have to pay that to the U of M. So that's where that is. Yeah.
You mentioned the value of the credits earned. How many, do you know about how many kids took advantage of the program?
Over 150. There were about 75 to 80 in Spanish and also 75 about in physics.
Great, thanks.
Is that just the U of M or all colleges?
All the U of M system. So UMD, but it's only at the University of Minnesota. It's not for Century or St. Thomas or anything.
Bethel or...
So moving on, district office staff, clerical to administration, all of the folks here. There are part-time folks from human resources. I just know that like Canning, my folks have a cabin there, they have a half-time superintendent. There are positions that are half-time, 0.8 superintendent, 0.8 business manager, point this percentage of time. The 4-day school week, I want to speak to that just a little bit. This is one of the things that North Branch had done historically, and this is also something that Stillwater had on their list. That means that students would only have school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Decision would need to be made, but most places take Monday off because of the holidays that there are, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, that type of thing. Students would have about the same number of hours and minutes during their school day. The difference is that there would be no school on Mondays. So if it's a 40-hour week, instead of 5 days and 8 hours, it'd be 4 days and 10 hours. So students would have about the same amount of time. The savings comes in terms of food service and transportation. Those are the big pieces there. The idea about utilities remains to be seen. For example, North Branch, and I can't remember which school it was one of their schools, Friday they turned the heat down to 50 degrees and then turned it back up on Monday in the evening, so it'd be warm on Tuesday. That's another possibility, but we don't have those exact numbers. I'm really nervous about using this last year's winter as a predictor of future.
I'm also nervous about asking kids about that one, because I think there might be overwhelming support. Maybe that's just my kid.
And so moving on, gifted and talented coordinator and teacher, building nurses, clerical positions, custodial staff, paraprofessional, behavior specialists. That's when I spoke earlier about the 68% of the salary is reimbursed, and so instead of a full-time position, it's a smaller amount. Same thing with school psychologists, and then the same thing with special education teachers. That is reimbursed by the state, so it's not really a full-time teacher that you would have.
So those are all either state reimbursements,
Yes.
federal reimbursements?
State.
State.
Yeah. The title is federal, but everything else is the state here. Then possible revenue increases. The activity fees here. Currently, in terms of fees that students pay and gate, and the gate that people generate by coming to the events, we generate about close to 500 or close to 400 and some thousand. The expenses are about 900,000 for activities overall. And so we subsidize that to the tune of about $500,000 a year. If we were to double the activity fees, whoops, sorry about that. If we were to double the activity fees, that would generate about another 270,000. This 270,000 over here, that's how much we generate right now. And this is pretty accurate. Took the information from the high school activities director and plus the state fees, multiplied them together, and that's what we ended up with. And if you tripled them, then it'd be about 540. We currently have some advertising. If you drove by the stadiums here, you saw that we have placards or something on the outfield walls. Also with our programs, we have some, but we have not looked extensively at advertising. For example, the high school sign selling space on the website. There are possibilities for those type of things. In addition, naming rights, we have not explored that at all as a possibility. For example, Anderson Elementary in Stillwater is named after, as many of you know, Anderson Windows. They came up with a huge donation for that. If people wanted to give us, millions of dollars to name a stadium, would we consider it? Would we consider a classroom being named, naming rights, athletic fields? There's a whole bunch of things that we haven't discussed. Locker and floor space advertisements. There are some school districts that have this in which they have stenciled type things on lockers, and they're also in on floors. St. Francis is probably the closest one to us that does that. They make about $10,000 for doing that advertisement. And then we could increase parking fees for students and transportation for busing. I want to speak a little bit to this. Right now, the state law, we pretty much pick up anybody on the buses. If we were to charge people who live more than a half mile away from the elementary school or 2 miles from the secondary school and got the bus and got a ride, we could generate about $60,000 in revenue. On one of the previous slides, I think I also had on there, did we have eliminate 2 bus routes? Is that on there? I didn't speak to that. I better check on that. If it's not on here, I should speak to it a little bit. We had talked about eliminating bus routes at one time, and it was not a very popular idea, simply because it would add about 20 minutes to the school day for students, eliminating 2 buses. I don't know if it's...
I do see it over as one of the options.
Okay, good. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't have it on the other slide. There are 3 ways for schools to generate income. 1 is increasing fees. 2 is to increase the number of students. And 3 is to pass a levy. And so we have some of the increases here. You can increase fees, and also I should have said, and generate revenue through advertising and so on. So you can do some of those type of things, but there's really not a lot more ways to do that. Students really is kind of the name of the game with this. So these are some of the explanations. I know I went through this fairly quickly, but I want to give people a chance to roam around. There were a couple of questions. I think we had a question way back here and over here too. Yes, sir.
What's the total of all the cuts in the room? So you gave me a list, 2 or 3 slides. What's the total of the entire list?
I don't know. And the reason why is because we want people to have to really think about this and to look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to pick this for 325, I'm going to pick this for 70, now I'm up to 395. Oh, I still have to get to another 600,000. We want people to actually have to work through this a little bit. So I'm sorry, if you were told there wasn't going to be any math on this.
Yeah.
Okay, and then from the revenue side, obviously the big one is the fees. What was the break-even point for the activity?
About 900,000 is what it costs for activities. It'd be about even.
Break-even?
Yeah. And then question back here, yes, sir.
Yeah, what's on the fees, so you said right now we bring in about 480 or so with fees and gate.
Yes.
So if you double the fees, you're not doubling the gate, you're just doubling the fees for the students?
Right.
Why weren't you considering adding on to the gate price?
We can also do that. That might be a post-it to include on that.
This is, as I understand it, this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list, and certainly ideas like that are welcome.
Yeah. And then if you, I don't know if this presentation is already on our website or not, it might be, but you can visit the website, and one of the things that we had here, this is the link, if it's on the website, this is the link that takes you right to our audit. It's on that page, and so you can find it there. We also have our budgets the last couple of years on the website that you're also able to look at. And you can also call or email any of the people here. I'm Mark Larson. Rochelle Manders is our business manager. Lynn Beaker is our director of curriculum director, and then Beth Sneeden is also here, and she can also entertain questions on that. So if you have questions, I get very few calls, emails where most people communicate with us, so I'm also willing to accept calls. Yes, sir.
Mark, just a clarification on the, I believe the high school league may limit your ability to for gate prices. You can change your student fees, but I believe the high school league has some limitations on how high you can put your gate.
That's why I bid the same thing everywhere I go on. Probably. Yeah, other questions?
Do you know what percentage of students use scholarship on activity fees right now? Or waive?
We have about 10% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, and those students are automatically waived. And then anyone else who makes a case to the activities director almost always gets that. One thing that I feel absolutely incredibly strongly about is that we'll never not allow a student to participate because of financial hardship. We'll find the money for them.
Right, so if you double or triple it, that's going to go up as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I think what we're going to do in the interest of time is to try to get folks up, moving, talking. Mark, Rochelle, others are going to be available to ask questions as you're doing it. But I think this exercise is going to take a while, and if we could plan to reconvene, if I sense that people are done and you've exhausted your dots,
I have one
I'll call us.
question, please.
Just a minute, please, sir. Thank you.
You'll take my question then?
I will be happy to take your question, but I'd ask you to respect the fact that I'm speaking right now.
How much you respect me too? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's the deal.
Thank you.
That's the deal here. So you're going to have six red dots to indicate cuts that you'd support, 2 yellow dots to indicate cuts you do not support. So look at your little cheat sheet, get them right, please. And then 2 green dots to indicate revenue ideas that you would support. And as I say, this is going to take a while. Talk to your neighbors, ask questions if you have them, and if we seem to be all done earlier than 8 o'clock, I'll pull us back together. Otherwise, I'm probably going to pull us back together at 8 o'clock anyway, or at least give you about a 3-minute warning so that we can get back together and move on to the next phase. And yes, sir.
My question is, because I went on the district website, I had to go to the Minnesota Department of Education. And when you're talking budgets here, why is there no reference, either on the website or your presentation, that the district's budget is $56 million, that, and I'm reading from your material, that the capital expenditure is over another 17 million, that your debt service is 6 million. And I think that when we talk about these budgets, and people need to understand that the district is spending over $17,000 per student per year. And that when we throw out these half figures, I think we need to talk the total picture and not come up with things that disrespect the public.
I don't believe anyone's trying to disrespect the public, sir. I wouldn't be involved if I thought that was happening.
Well, I just feel that the storyline doesn't match reality.
Well, and
Matt, thank you.
Yeah, if-
We're going to get going on this, but
if-
basically, look at the audit online. You'll see the audited amount. You're conflating two different things. One is the building bond, which is different than the general fund. The general fund is used to pay for teachers and programming. The building bond, which you're referring to, includes things like the building, this one, other improvements that we made. So it's two very different things in very different funds. However, what I think you're getting at, which is correct, is that the taxpayers approved the bond, and that is part of the tax burden that the residents have. They also now were asking about a levy, which is different. The way I always explain it is that bonds are for buildings and levies are for learning. It's kind of a simplistic device, but it makes sense. We're talking about levies and we're talking about learning. Unfortunately, I can't get this web page to show up on the screen. We'll get it up for you on that, but there's also a spot on our homepage where you can ask a question and leave a comment. And so if you have other comments that we haven't gotten to, we can do that. But as it is, we have about, I'd like to give us moving up.
20 minutes or so to start knowing about and giving your input. Thanks again. pamphlets that were on the back wall. We're going to put up the different levy options. I know a few people already apparently used their orange dots, turning over the pages, but so be it. You don't get a second dot. That's a rule, and we mean it. Again, the next phase is to get these different levy options up. Mark, do you want to just run through once again quick? And please do remember too that the website is there as a pretty valuable resource. I know I'm still learning how to use it myself, I admit. Because I have sadly not been very involved in any of this in the past. But I have found it to be a pretty good resource. And you can certainly, as the little friendly finger of fate is pointing there, use it to ask a question or leave a comment as well. The presentation that was run through today will be up there if it's not already. Again, if you want to just recap for us very quickly what the options, either Rochelle or what the levy options are and what that translates to. It's been a while since we ran through those slides at the start of the night. So maybe we could do both the different options that are going to be up on the wall, what that means, and then what the property tax impact is again.
The previous screen had the website information, and I clicked on it so that you can also go to the audit and the budgets that have been on there. They're on the website. You have to go under business services. And if you have questions, there's an ask a question and a comment, and we're trying to compile a running group of questions that we have here. This information, went over it really quickly, but now we're going to go over it again in a little bit more detail. The expenditure line here stays the same all the way through. So what the expenditures are expected to be in a year, it stays the same all the way through. It's for 2015-16. And then this revenues are the things that change. With a failed levy, that would mean the revenue, that would be the deficit. With a straight renewal, that would be the revenue, and then that would be the deficit. And you can see how that goes out. And so you can see how that follows along. So what you'll need to do then is where you have these things placed on the windows in the back wall, and I'd like you to go up and do that in just a minute. The other thing though that I wanted to show was this, and this is the property tax impact statement. $268,000 is the average valued home in Monterey School District according to Washington County. And so if your house is worth more than this, then your taxes would be more, and if it's worth less, then of course it would be less. We have a chart like this that has things from $50,000 on here, pretty much $50,000 all the way through. But we shorten it down so we just have a few on here so you get a good sense of where we are. Michelle already explained here the existing levy, the local option, the school board approved, and then the remaining of the levy is about $157. And then if the new levies increase, then it's $145 additional. And I want to be clear that this $78 is in addition to this $454. So if this levy passes, it's not just 78, it's this plus this. And the same thing as you go further out, 2016, and then for 330, and then for 500. So that's where that is. What I would suggest, unless you want to, is that you should have one dot left, at least we hope you do. I'd like you to look around and see if there's other spots that you wish to place your dot. Do that, and then that shouldn't take too long, probably 5 or 10 minutes or so. And I'd like to pull people back together and see if there's some questions or anything.
Perfect. Okay. So, it's your chance to voice your view on the levy, the different options from no levy to a $500 increase per student. So it goes from least to most, and option 6 is for you to write in your own amount. Question?
I just have a clarification question. Are you interested in what we as voters would support, or what we overall think would pass or would be most successful?
No, I think the desire is to get the sense of the community, is at least as the way I've understood this exercise. So it's not what you think might work.
It's what we
It's what you
would
personally
vote for.
believe.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks again for coming and participating. So you can talk amongst yourselves and vote. I think everyone has had time to put their orange dots. I know some people are still talking, which is great. That's what this is supposed to be about, is getting the conversation going and continuing. Again, I've been very, very happy to be able to be here and be a part of this, both forums that I've been a part of at least. I know I've learned, I've appreciated the interactions with folks with very, very different views, but being able to talk about it in a constructive and civil way, which can only benefit all of us, whatever comes out the back end of this process. But what I thought would be helpful before we send you on your way, so that you can catch the second and third period of the Wild game, at least that's important to me. Not more important than this, I'm not suggesting that, but I am anxious to get to the Wild.
May I speak to this?
I'd like you to walk through, if you could again, what the next steps are, both with the board and with the community, because obviously we've only gotten a very small slice of the community here tonight. We need more of the community involved. We need you to get more of the community involved, whatever your views are on this, because this is really important stuff.
But we do appreciate everyone coming out, so thank you for doing that. The first thing, this was the community meeting that we had. This is our 5th of these that we've had this spring. The first few were held at the district office, and we probably had 70 or 80 people. And then we moved it to here. It's a much nicer venue, and so it seems like a smaller crowd, but they're about the same. We're probably about 15 less than we've had at some of those other meetings, but we're still getting a lot of people to be involved. And so over those 5 meetings, we probably had 350 people who came. Of course, some repeats, but we're really appreciative of people coming out, especially on one of the few nice nights we've had all year. Our next step is that we're making arrangements to go to the staffs at each of the 4 buildings, the 5 including the district office. And what we'll do is we'll go through the same exercise with them. We want to make sure we have the teachers involved, the principals involved, the custodians, food service, paraprofessionals, clerical, everyone. So we're going to do that at the sites. Then the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to send out an electronic survey. We have that on our email. It's a Survey Monkey type thing. It'll be emailed out to families. We'll also have it on our website, and so that people can also go through this same experience with the dots. Then, those are the things that are happening in the next few weeks. Then on May 8th, that's a school board meeting on Thursday night, they'll give direction to administration to craft some proposals to come forward on May 22nd. I want to make sure that date, it's a Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. May 22nd is the school board meeting. It's a study session. The administration will bring forward a whole bunch of different ideas. The board will sift through them, discuss, and so on. We'll have almost all of this data completed by that time, and so the board will have a lot to chew on. Additionally, if you have other questions or comments that you want to make to the board or to me, you have my contact information on here. Rochelle Manders is also our business manager. You can also email her, and so we're happy to do that. We already showed you the ask a question, leave a comment thing on the website. You can also do that, so don't feel that, please share with your friends and neighbors that, if you missed tonight, that's okay. There still are these other opportunities to give input, and so we want to have that. And then on June 12th, that's the next school board meeting after May 8th in the public. That's a meeting in which they take actions and so on. It's not a study session. We're making decisions at that point.
And I was also asked by someone whether there are going to be any more of these kinds of community forums. Is there a plan for that yet, or?
We'll be having some of the same type of things in the fall, but the rest of the spring and summer, no. And we won't be having any of these in the summer. We'll have our school board meetings, and those are welcome to the public, but we'll have these type of things again in the fall.
You're suggesting that we're actually going to have a summer?
Maybe it'll be like a spring break.
Yeah. Dare to dream. Yeah. I think that's it for this evening. Thank you very, very much for coming out. And please do encourage folks to participate in the online survey. It's community input that is going to make this process work, however it is destined to work. So thanks again. Appreciate your time and attendance.
He is.
Well,